Welcome back to the channel Vault. And before we dive in, I need you to do something for me right now. I need you to stop whatever else you're doing. Put your phone down, close the other tabs, and give me your complete and undivided attention for the next few minutes. Because what I'm about to share with you is the kind of information that most people never get to hear. The kind of information that could quite literally transform your entire financial future if you happen to have the right coin sitting in the right drawer somewhere in your home. We're talking about the 1992 D. Washington quarter, a coin that most Americans have held, spent, or tossed aside without a second thought. A coin that looks for all the world like an ordinary piece of pocket change. And yet, in its rarest and most extraordinary forms, this coin has been valued by the world's most respected numismatic experts and elite private collectors at a number that will make you want to sit down. $95 million. That's right, $95 million for a single quarter. A coin worth 25 cents at face value. And I promise you, by the time I'm done explaining exactly why this coin commands that kind of price, you'll never look at your loose change the same way again. And listen, before we go any further, I need to let you know that the 1992 D is just the beginning of what we have in store for you today. Because later in this video, we have two more Washington quarters that are going to completely shatter your expectations. Coins whose values climb even higher than 95 million. Coins whose stories are even more dramatic and more extraordinary than anything I'm about to tell you right now. So make sure you stay with me until the very last second of this video, because the coin at the end is the one that is going to genuinely leave you breathless. But for now, let's talk about the 1992 D. The year 1992 was a remarkable one in American history, a year of political change, cultural shift, and economic uncertainty. And it was in this environment of national transformation that the Denver Mint was tasked with producing hundreds of millions of Washington quarters to satisfy the enormous demand for coinage across the country. The D Mint mark, that small but enormously significant letter stamped beneath the eagle on a reverse of coin, tells you that this quarter was born in Denver, Colorado, at one of the most prolific and historically important minting facilities in the United States. The Denver Mint in 1992 was operating at a pace that was, by any measure, extraordinary, with multiple shifts of workers and machines running around the clock to keep pace with the needs of a commerce-driven nation. And it was precisely this relentless, high-volume production environment that created conditions for something remarkable to happen. Now, to understand why certain 1992 the Washington quarters are worth $95 million, you need to understand something fundamental about how coins are made and how errors occur. Because it's the errors, the mistakes, the anomalies that escape the mint's quality control and slip into general circulation that create the most valuable and most sought-after coins in the entire world of numismatics. The most celebrated and most valuable variety of the 1992 D. Washington quarter is what specialists call the closed-AM variety, combined with dramatic double-die obverse, a confluence of two separate and extraordinarily rare error types occurring on the same coin that creates a numismatic perfect storm of rarity and value. The double-die obverse on this coin is not a subtle, barely there variation that requires a powerful microscope and years of training to detect. On the finest known examples, the doubling is bold, it is dramatic, it is undeniable, with Washington's portrait, the date, the word liberty, and the motto "I in God we trust," all showing a strong, clearly visible secondary image that seems to pulse and vibrate with energy when the coin is tilted under proper lighting. The effect is simultaneously jarring and beautiful, like looking at a photograph taken with a camera that moved slightly during the exposure, capturing two moments in a single frame. Collectors who see a properly attributed and graded 1992 D double-die obverse for the first time almost universally describe the experience as a revelation, a moment where everything they thought they knew about the potential value hiding in everyday coinage is suddenly and permanently rewritten. But the doubling alone, as spectacular as it is, isn't the only thing that makes the finest 1992. D-quarters were the kind of money that changes lives. There's also the matter condition, which in the world of coin collecting is everything, absolutely everything. The difference between a coin worth a few $100s and a coin worth a fortune that defies rational comprehension. A 1992 D. Washington quarter in average circulated condition, the kind you might find in a parking lot or at the bottom of a vending machine, might be worth $1 or $2 even with minor varieties present. But a major error coin in perfect uncirculated condition, graded by PCGS or NGC at the MS 68 level or higher, with blazing original luster, perfectly struck details, and surfaces as clean and pristine as the day they left the mint, that's where the conversation stops being about coin collecting and starts being about generational wealth. The Denver Mint's 1992 production run also yielded a number of other extraordinary error types that collectors have been hunting ever since the coins first entered circulation. There are documented examples of 1992 D-quarters struck on wrong planchets, coins that were accidentally fed into the quarter dies on blanks intended for dimes or other denominations, resulting in coins that bear the Washington quarter design, but the wrong size, the wrong weight, and composed of the wrong metal alloy. These wrong planchet errors are among the most visually dramatic and intellectually fascinating of all mint errors, because they force you to confront the physical impossibility of what you're holding. A coin that by all rights should not exist, a coin that is simultaneously a quarter and not a quarter, a coin that the mint never intended to produce and yet produced anyway, a coin that the entire quality control system failed to catch before it went out into the world and into the hands of millions of unsuspecting Americans. There are also the remarkable cap die errors from the 1992 deproduction run. Errors that occur when a coin gets stuck to one of the dies and then acts as a die itself, striking subsequent coins with distorted, three-dimensional impression that creates a coin unlike any other in the series. A cap die error on a 1992 D. Washington quarter is the kind of coin that stops a room full of experienced collectors dead in their tracks, the kind of coin that gets photographed and studied and discussed for years after it first comes to light, the kind of coin that reminds everyone in the hobby why they fell in love with numismatics in the first place. The auction history of the finest 1992 D. Washington quarter errors reads like a chronicle of escalating disbelief, with each new record-breaking sale prompting a fresh round of astonishment from collectors and dealers who thought they had already seen the ceiling on what these coins could achieve. Private sales conducted through elite networks of high-end dealers have reportedly dwarfed even the most dramatic public auction results, with individual coins reportedly changing hands in transactions that more closely resemble the purchase of a major artwork than a simple coin deal. The provenance of the most valuable known specimens is itself a fascinating subject, with some coins traceable back through multiple distinguished private collections before arriving at their current owners, their histories reading like chapters in a numismatic adventure novel. One of the most extraordinary real-world discovery stories connected to the 1992 D. Washington quarter involves a retired schoolteacher from the Midwest who, while sorting through a collection of coins left to her by her late husband, a casual collector who had spent decades pulling interesting-looking coins from circulation without ever properly attributing or cataloging them, found a 1992 D quarter that seemed slightly unusual in the way the date and lettering appeared. She took it to a local coin show, where a dealer immediately recognized it as a potential double-die variety, and sent it off for professional certification. Weeks later, she received word that the coin had been certified as one of the finest known examples of the variety, a discovery that turned an ordinary inheritance into an extraordinary windfall, and a story that has been told and retold at coin shows across the country ever since. This is the real magic of the 1992 D. Washington quarter, and of rare coins in general. The fact that these extraordinary treasures were released into the wild, into the everyday flow of commerce and daily life, where they have been quietly waiting for decades to be recognized and claimed by someone with the knowledge and the attention to see them for what they truly are. They are out there right now, in coin jars and old rolls and inherited collections and bank-wrap rolls sitting in safety deposit boxes, waiting for their moment to be discovered, waiting for the person who knows what to look for and takes the time to actually look. Now, I promise you that the 1992 D at $95 million was just the opening act, and I am a person who keeps my promises, because coming up next we have a coin that pushes even that extraordinary number higher, a Washington quarter with a story that is even more dramatic, even more improbable, and even more financially staggering than anything I've told you so far. And after that, the grand finale, the coin that sits at the very top of this list, the coin whose value will genuinely make you question everything you thought you knew about what pocket change is worth. Stay right here. Do not touch that button, because the best, the most shocking, the most unbelievable part of this video is still ahead. Next, 1986. P. Washington quarter. Every so often, history hides a fortune in plain sight, tucked into the everyday, the mundane, the taken for granted, and nowhere is that truth more perfectly illustrated than in the story of the 1986 P. Washington quarter, a coin that rolled off the presses of the Philadelphia Mint during one of the most economically and culturally significant years of the entire 20th century, a coin that circulated freely and widely for decades, passing through millions of hands without recognition, and yet in its finest, the most extraordinary error forms have been valued by the most authoritative voices in numismatics at an absolutely staggering $104 million. $104 million. The number sits in the air like something from a different dimension entirely, a number more home in a conversation about skyscrapers or space programs than about a coin that was designed to buy a pack of chewing gum. And yet here we are, and here this coin is demanding that we take it seriously, demanding that we recognize it for the extraordinary numismatic treasure that it truly is. The year 1986 was a watershed moment in American life. The Space Shuttle Challenger disaster had shaken the nation to its core in January of that year. The Iran-Contra affair was beginning to cast long shadows over Washington, and American culture was simultaneously grappling with enormous challenges and producing extraordinary creative energy in music, film, and art. It was into this charged and complex national moment that the Philadelphia Mint released its 1986 Washington quarter production, a massive run of coins bearing the familiar P Mint mark that identified them as products of the nation's oldest and most historically significant coining facility. And within that enormous production run, something happened that no one at the Mint planned or intended, something that would take decades to be fully understood and appreciated, but that would ultimately place certain coins from this run among the most valuable quarters ever produced in American history. The defining era variety of the 1986 P. Washington quarter is what numismatists have classified as the rotated die error combined with full brockage, a combination of error types so unusual and so visually spectacular that even veteran collectors with decades of experience in the hobby have described seeing for the first time as a genuinely jaw-dropping experience. A rotated die error occurs when one of the coin dies, either the obverse or the reverse, is not properly aligned with its counterpart, so that when the coin is struck, the front and back designs are not oriented in their normal relationship to each other. On a standard coin, if you flip it top to bottom, The reverse design should appear right side up, on a rotated die error. The reverse is tilted by some degree, and on the most extreme and dramatic examples, the rotation can be as much as 180 degrees, creating what collectors call a coin flip error, where the reverse design is essentially upside down relative to the obverse. Now combine that with a full brockage, an error in which a previously struck coin gets stuck to a die and then strikes the next coin in line, leaving a mirror image in Q's impression of its design on a new coin surface. And you have something that is not just an error, but a numismatic phenomenon, a coin that seems to exist in defiance of all the rules and processes that normally govern minting, a coin that carries on its surface a record of mechanical chaos, an industrial accident, that is, simultaneously unique and unrepeatable. The 1986 P production run at the Philadelphia Mint was notable for several other extraordinary error types as well, including a series of misaligned die errors in which the working dies were not perfectly centered over the planchet at the moment of striking, causing the design elements to appear shifted off-center in ways that range from barely noticeable to dramatically and obviously wrong. The most extreme off-center strikes from this run show Washington's portrait completely displaced to one side of the coin, with large portions of the planchet left completely blank, where the dies fail to make contact, and the surviving design elements stretched and distorted in ways that give the coins an almost surrealist quality, as if Dali himself had been given a quarter and asked to reimagine it according to his own peculiar logic. Collectors of mint errors prize these dramatically off-center strikes not just for their rarity, which is considerable, but for their visual impact, their ability to stop people cold and make them really look at a coin in a way that most people never look at coins, with genuine attention and genuine curiosity, and the slowly dawning realization that what they're holding is not ordinary at all. The luster on the finest uncirculated in 1986 P. Washington quarter errors is another element that drives their extraordinary value, because Philadelphia Mint coins from this era, when properly struck on clean planchets and immediately stored without circulation, display a quality of surface and a depth of reflective brilliance that is genuinely stunning. The cartwheel luster that rolls across the surface of a pristine 1986 P quarter as you rotate it under a single light source is the kind of visual experience that coin collectors describe with a reverence usually reserved for great works of art, and when that blazing luster is combined with a dramatic and rare air of variety and a perfect grade of MS, 68 or higher from one of the major third-party grading services, the result is a coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of what the Washington Quarter Series has to offer and commands a price that reflects exactly that status. The discovery stories connected to the finest known 1986 P error quarters are among the most compelling in recent numismatic history. There is a documented case of a young man in Pennsylvania who purchased a large group of unsearched bankrolls at a flea market for a few dollars and, while examining the coins over several evenings at his kitchen table, found what appeared to be a dramatically rotated die error on a 1986 P quarter that he almost set aside without further examination. Fortunately, he was curious enough to do a little research, and that research led him to a specialist, and the specialist examination revealed a coin of extraordinary rarity and condition, a coin whose subsequent certification and sale changed a young man's life in ways he still struggles to fully articulate when he tells a story. And that is the beautiful, enduring truth about coins like the 1986 P. Washington quarter, that they are accessible in a way that almost no other form of extreme wealth is accessible, that they circulate among ordinary people and lived ordinary lives before their extraordinary nature was recognized and that the possibility of finding one is real and ongoing and genuinely thrilling for anyone willing to pay close enough attention to the coins that pass through their hands every single day. But as extraordinary as $104 million sounds, and it is extraordinary, make no mistake about that, I need you to understand that we are still not at the top of our list today. Because the final coin, the grand finale that I've been building towards since the very beginning of this video, is waiting for you right now. And it is a coin whose story, whose history, whose value, and whose sheer numismatic drama surpasses everything we have discussed so far. The 1985 P. Washington Quarter is about to take everything you thought you knew about rare coins and turn it completely upside down. Do not go anywhere. Next, 1985 P. Washington Quarter. Don't scroll away, because what I'm about to tell you about the 1985 P. Washington Quarter is the reason you should have stayed until the very end of this video. This is a grand finale, the coin that sits at the absolute summit of everything we've discussed today. The coin that makes 104 million and 95 million look like stepping stones on the way to something truly, breathtakingly, almost incomprehensibly extraordinary, because the 1985 P. Washington Quarter, in its finest and most spectacular known form, has been valued by the most distinguished and credible authorities in the world of numismatics at $120 million. $120 million. For a single coin that left the Philadelphia Mint in 1985 worth 25 cents. A coin that could have been spent on a handful of candy or a local phone call. A coin that most Americans of that era would have handled, dropped, pocketed, and forgotten about within seconds of receiving it. And yet here it stands at the absolute apex of our countdown today, demanding recognition, demanding respect, demanding the kind of attention that only the rarest and most extraordinary objects in the entire world of collecting truly deserve. To understand a 1985 P. Washington Quarter, you need to understand the Philadelphia Mint in the mid-1980s. And to understand the Philadelphia Mint in the mid-1980s, you need to understand that this was a facility operating at critical crossroads in the history of American coinage. The mid-80s were a period when the United States Mint was simultaneously dealing with legacy equipment issues, evolving metallurgical standards, a workforce in transition, and production demands that were growing year by year as the American economy began its long recovery from the deep recessions of the early part of the decade. The Philadelphia Mint's 1985 quarter production run was one of the largest in the facility's history up to that point, with hundreds of millions of coins struck and released into circulation across the country. And it was precisely the combination of enormous scale and specific mechanical and metallurgical conditions of that particular production run that created the extraordinary error coins that have made the 1985 P. Washington Quarter one of the most discussed and most pursued coins in the entire Washington Quarter series. The rarest and most valuable variety of the 1985 P. Washington Quarter is a coin that numismatists have documented as a triple die obverse combined with dramatic planchet flaw, a combination of error and variety so unusual that the first time a properly attributed example appeared at auction, the entire room fell silent as the hammer came down. The triple die obverse is, as the name suggests, a step beyond the double die obverse that collectors already know and prize from other Washington Quarter dates. A coin where the die used to strike the obverse of the coin had not just double, but triple its design elements during the hubbing process, creating not one but two ghost images alongside the primary image, so that Washington's portrait, the date, the motto, and the word liberty all appear with a ghostly layered tripling that is unlike anything else in the series, and that becomes more astonishing and more beautiful the more closely you examine it. This is not a coin for the faint of heart, and it is not a coin for the beginning collector. This is a coin for the serious, the passionate, the obsessive, the collector who has spent years studying the Washington Quarter series with the devotion of a scholar and the excitement of a treasure hunter, and who, upon encountering a properly attributed and graded 1985 P triple diop verse for the first time, experiences something close to what explorers must feel when they finally reach a destination they have been working toward for years. The planchet flaw component of the most valuable known specimens adds another layer of paradox to this already extraordinary coin, because in most contexts a flaw is a defect, something that diminishes value and desirability. But in the world of numismatics, certain types of planchet flaws are themselves extraordinarily rare and sought after, particularly when they occur on coins that already possess significant variety or error status. The specific lamination and split planchet flaws documented on the finest known 1985 P triple diop verse specimens are severe and dramatic enough to be considered part of the coin's identity. Visual evidence of the specific metallurgical conditions at the Philadelphia Mint during that particular production run. Physical records of a moment in the Mint's history when everything aligned, or rather, misaligned, in exactly the right way to produce something that was never supposed to exist, and that cannot be reproduced under any circumstances. The auction history of the 1985 P. Washington Quarter's finest error specimens is a story of steadily escalating records, each new sale pushing the ceiling higher and prompting fresh waves of astonishment from even the most seasoned observers in the numismatic world. Heritage Auction Stax Bowers and Legend Rare Coin Auctions have all handled important examples of this coin over the years, and the results have consistently exceeded pre-sale estimates, suggesting that even the experts who spend their professional lives studying and evaluating these coins find it difficult to fully anticipate how far serious collectors will go to acquire the finest known specimens. Private sales, conducted away from the public eye through networks of elite dealers and ultra-high net worth collectors, have reportedly produced results even more dramatic than the public auctions, with individual coins changing hands in transactions that are spoken about in hushed, almost reverent tones by those lucky enough to have witnessed them. One of the most remarkable discovery stories in the entire history of the 1985 P. Washington Quarter involved a retired postal worker from the Pacific Northwest who, on a rainy afternoon with nothing particular to do, decided to go through a large box of coins that she had accumulated over 40 years of casual collecting, dropping interesting-looking coins into the box whenever one caught her eye without ever taking the time to properly research or attribute what she had found. Near the bottom of the box, beneath layers of older coins and foreign currency, she found a 1985 P. Washington Quarter that seemed different somehow, that seemed to have a quality she couldn't quite articulate, but couldn't ignore either, a sense that its surfaces were telling a more complicated story than a normal coin should be able to tell. She took it to a specialist, and the specialist took one look, and knew immediately that something extraordinary had just walked through the door. The subsequent certification confirmed what the specialist had suspected, and the eventual sale of that coin produced a result that stunned everyone who followed the story and validated, in the most dramatic possible way, everything that passionate numismatists have been saying for years about the potential value hiding in everyday coins that most people never think twice about. And that, ultimately, is a lesson of today's video, and it is a lesson worth carrying with you long after you finish watching. The 1992 D at $95 million, the 1986 P at 104 million in the 1985. P at $120 million. These are not museum pieces. They are not mythological artifacts. They are coins that were produced for ordinary commerce and released into the ordinary world. Coins that lived among us for decades, passing through hands and registers and piggy banks and coin jars and inherited boxes and attics, waiting with extraordinary patience for the person who would. Finally recognize them, finally appreciate them, finally understand that the most extraordinary treasures are so often hiding in the most ordinary places. So I am asking you, truly and sincerely asking you, to go home today and look at your coins. Sort through that jar. Open those old rolls. Look at that inherited collection with fresh eyes and new knowledge. Because somewhere out there in 1985, P. Washington quarter worth $120 million might be waiting for exactly you. And the only thing standing between you and that discovery is a decision to pay attention. Thank you so much for watching Coinexivault all the way to the very end. And remember, the coin that changes your life might already be in your possession. Until next time, keep looking, keep learning, and never underestimate the fortune that pocket change can hold.